it's a new era in CFB to start off this year, put on full display.
My take on this game is simple. I know some people will be upset about it. Good riddance to the Pac-12.
Can you do it in terms of the week to week to week?
I don't see a pathway for this team to miss the college football playoffs.
We want to make sure you have those best bets in the entirety of our betting cards. That was Lincoln! But he had that program was already going there!
Only on SportsGrid.
Crew has already clinched the National League Central. They're 2 games behind LA. That being the Dodgers, trying to maybe get the 2nd seed in the National League standings for October.
Both of these teams have a chance to score some runs against these pitching matchups, so maybe another over, even though we do have a playoff atmosphere. And yes, Milwaukee did clinch, but there's still an eye on the prize of we might be able to chase down the Dodgers and also the Phillies to get one of those buys.
The early line. Only on SportsGrid.
Brian Daboll has been feeling it. He's in a foul mood. He's having stare-downs with Pat Leonard and everything else.
John Mara wants Brian Daboll to go and get the next quarterback. They tried to get the next quarterback. We all watched it on Hard Knocks. They couldn't end up with Daniels. They couldn't end up with May. So they said, okay, we'll run it back a year. We'll go get Neighbors, and we'll tolerate.
Pharrell Coast to Coast. Only on Sport.
Good morning. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. We're back to Thursday, which means back to football in both college and pro. We'll have a preview of tonight's game between the Dallas Cowboys and New York Giants coming up a little bit later in the show. Also, Major League Baseball's postseason is upon us, although it's going to take an extra day. They're going to have to play games Monday. More on that in just a minute. Matt Lutovsky will join us, courtesy of Sporting News. We'll get into it. Also, Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report with the very latest news, notes, and information about sports betting across the country. And Brady Kannon will give us a quick look at the NFL slate this weekend, talk about some of the contests that he is participating in. It's been a very, very tough start for a lot of people betting on the NFL. We'll see what Brady has to say about that. But let's begin with a little college football and more news coming out from UNLV. Yes, that school yesterday has been in our headlines now twice in back-to-back days because not only did they lose their quarterback to what looks like the transfer portal, they're also losing their running back in the same way, as Michael Allen, who is a running back for the Rebels, announced yesterday that he is leaving the school. It does appear that this is more to do with playing time than actual money, but UNLV is in a very precarious spot. We did see their new starting quarterback on social media saying that he's ready to go and they're going to rally around him. But make no mistake about it, Rebels don't start off in college football 3-0 very often, and it remains to be seen how they will perform now without their starting quarterback and one of their running backs this season. He felt like he wasn't getting enough playing time. Meanwhile, the beat goes on for quarterback Matthew Sluka, with this is back and forth jabs from the university and also from the NIL collective. But basically, the deal is that Sluka claims he was supposed to be paid and made financial demands, according to his returnee, to just continue playing, and it wasn't done. So UNLV Athletics interpreted these demands as a violation of NCAA pay-for-play rules. And UNLV saying that they don't engage in such activity, nor does it respond to implied threats. UNLV claims and says they have honored all previously agreed upon scholarships for their quarterback, Matthew Sluka. So, needless to say, it does appear that there is some discrepancy in terms of what they agreed upon before he went to the school and when he actually was at the school and what has happened recently after 3 games. Nonetheless, we'll get some clarity on this in the future. NCAA can't afford to see all kids leaving school after 3 weeks, which is, again, happening with yet another player. USC's defensive lineman is entering the transfer portal as well, and it just does appear that this is the way to go. After you've played 3 games in college football, you can redshirt, you can get full eligibility. And in this case, Connor Morissette reported yesterday that Bear Alexander, he is on the defensive side of USC's Trojans team, is entering the transfer portal. So this is the time of the year, I guess, for that. It's also the time of the year for the WNBA playoffs. We're now down to 4 teams, but it was a really exciting finish. In case you missed it last night, Caitlin Clark still making some huge news in the game yesterday. 25 points, 9 assists, and 6 rebounds. Although the Connecticut Sun knocked them out, Caitlin Clark had one of those great games that she's been having over the past couple of months, really coming into her own in the WNBA. Needless to say, it came down to a couple possessions at the end of the game that the Fever did not execute, says Clark. She'll have to wait till next year.
Definitely had our opportunities late, and then a few different miscues, and it's back to a 2-possession game, and we couldn't quite get over the hump there. So, like AB said, like it's a good little taste of what's possible for this organization and for this franchise, and there's a lot for us to hold our heads high about. This team won 5 games 2 years ago, so we're a young group, a pretty inexperienced group. But we came together and I had a lot of fun playing with one another. And that's sometimes the worst part of it is like you feel like you're really playing your best basketball and then it has to end. And but like I said, proud of this group, stayed resilient all year and had a lot of fun together.
WNBA growing in popularity, and thanks to Clark and company this year. All right, now tonight's game in the National Football League. I mean, is it a dud on paper? I'm not sure, because anytime a team is favored by 4 or 5 points or more, they lose outright. So maybe that's what will happen tonight as the Dallas Cowboys head to East Rutherford, New Jersey to take on the New York Giants. Giants are extremely banged up in the defensive backfield, and the Cowboys have got to be real upset after the way they've played the last couple of weeks. Meanwhile, Kansas City Chiefs have activated Kareem Hunt after cutting him 6 years ago. So things that are old are new again. Speaking of old and new again, it looks like Jordan Love's got a real chance to play this week for the Packers. They played well without him. Malik Willis has won a couple of games for them, but they'll play the Vikings this week. It's a division game. You would expect to see him back if he can play. And speaking of the Vikings, some sad news from the world of the NFL. Ex-Vikings quarterback from the 1980s, Tommy Kramer, announced yesterday on social media that he has dementia. So certainly thoughts and prayers with him. All right, let's get to the latest on this Mountain West controversy entering the Pac-12. Some teams staying, some teams leaving. UNLV, Air Force, they announced yesterday that they're going to remain in the MWC with some financial incentives. Each school that has to leave has to pay $18 million due depart. So in this case, those teams stay, and they get paid a little bit more. The teams that are departing, Boise State, Colorado State, Fresno State, San Diego State, and Utah State, they're headed to the Pac-12. That was announced earlier this week. Georgia's wide receiver, London Humphreys, announced that he has mono and is going to miss the game this week against the Alabama Crimson Tide, so one less weapon for the University of Georgia. There's also college football back tonight as well, and one of the academies is back at it. Army, 12.5-point road favorites tonight with a total of 46.5. I can give you a little preview of this one. Army's going to run the ball. Just my guess. Major League Baseball coming down to the wire. San Diego Padres and Los Angeles Dodgers now officially in a dogfight for the NL West. It's not over, but it can be if the Dodgers win today. They beat the Padres 4-3. Their magic number is now down to 2, so that means they win, Padres lose, and they win the division. Also, Shohei Ohtani in that game stole his 56th base of the season. He's got a shot at 50-60. How about that? Mets and Braves rained out today. So guess what? If the games are needed for the postseason wildcard chase, they're going to have to play 2 games Monday afternoon and Monday evening to determine the final wildcard spot. Look out. Baseball could be extended for another day. The Detroit Tigers are hoping to extend their season. They win again, 7-1. They top the Rays. They play the White Sox this weekend. Folks, it looks like the Tigers could be headed to the playoffs. Jackson Jobe had an incredible Major League debut and gets another win for the Tigers, who are surging.
I mean, it was crazy. I don't really think it's fully hit me yet, but it'd be tough to draw it up any better than that with this crowd and the position that this team's in. That was really special for sure. There was no really in-depth scouting report for me. It was pretty much just trust your stuff, go attack the zone, and that's what I did. Trust Ding back there, trust that my stuff plays up here, and I believe it does.
Right now, the Tigers are the hottest team in baseball. Meanwhile, the Yankees can close out the American League East tonight if they beat the Baltimore Orioles this evening. All right, the NBA, former MVP, I thought he was retired already, I'll be honest. Derrick Rose made it official yesterday. He's retiring after 16 seasons. In the National Basketball Association, he was the 2011 NBA's MVP, 17 points per game, 5 assists, 3 rebounds career. Also played for the Cavs, the Timberwolves, the Pistons, the Knicks, the Grizzlies. And when it's all said and done in several years, he'll be in the Basketball Hall of Fame. First round is wrapped up in the WNBA, and the semifinals begin on Sunday. There's a critical matchup, of course, between the two best teams in the league. Looks like they're matching up here in the semis, the Liberty and the Aces. They'll face off. Lynx will take on the Connecticut Sun. An announcement yesterday in the world of gaming. Boyd Gaming has acquired 2 New Jersey online casino skins, more or less digital gaming, and they acquired resortscasino.com and mohegansun.com. And also, North Carolina regulators have approved retail sports betting compliance proposal to make sure that wagering is done properly. And needless to say, they'll discuss that more with Legal Sports Report coming up in Pat Evans in just a few minutes. We'll hit some baseball next. Don't go away.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Major League Baseball's regular season is coming down to the wire. Most of the things have been decided, but there's still a couple of playoff spots up for grabs. Let's bring in Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News to dive into the latest in baseball. And Matt, as we come down the wire here, let's start our focus here on the National League West. And, I'm not sure how you really feel about the Dodgers at this point, because to me, it does feel similar to years past where they're sort of slogging their way through this. Some other team almost catches them. They end up winning the division. They get the bye. I guess the only reason that you would have more optimism this postseason is they do have Shohei Ohtani, who they have not had the last few years. If he is the equalizer, maybe he's the guy that can get them out of that first round doldrum.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. And different people, especially with baseball, sort of go into the postseason with different mindsets. And I think the narrative mindset is always strong. We do that a lot. We like to tell stories. We do that in all sports. And this is the narrative. This guy has one of these iconic ultra memorable seasons, and then he'll carry over into the postseasons, and he'll lead this franchise that has had so many disappointments here in the recent past. Does that happen? It doesn't, frankly. It doesn't happen that often, but it is fun to believe in that. And of course, they're dangling this carrot that he might be available to pitch a little bit too. And what a story that would be. So I do think on paper they have a great team. They're the favorites for a reason. And, they obviously have much more than Shohei Ohtani. So them winning coming out of the NL is certainly wouldn't be a huge shock. But I think people are been so fooled by the Dodgers in the past, they're cautious. But Ohtani is that type of player. He's on an absolute heater right now, and he can take over games with his bat and just be an absolute menace. So when you look at the rest of the NL, you can say a lot about these other teams, but the one thing you can't say is they have Shohei Ohtani. Only one team has him.
Yeah, we would love to see a Dodgers, Phillies matchup there in the end. I think those two teams have been the best teams in the NL, but look, a long way to go before we get there. All right. Meanwhile, the Diamondbacks this time last year, Matt, they started surging into the postseason, got their way all the way to the World Series, played really well down the stretch. Not quite the same this time around, but they did get that win that they really needed yesterday against the Giants. Look, I do think at this point that win is going to get them into the postseason one way or the other over the next few days. If they would have gotten swept, maybe we'd feel differently about this. But they played well enough for the majority of the season, and I think also especially in August to put themselves right back in another good position potentially to make a run.
Yeah, and look, anytime a team has experience, like recent experience making a deep run, they always have that extra level of belief that, hey, we can do this. We've been here. We know how this goes. Obviously, a big series this weekend, of course, but they're a talented team. They proved that they can do this again last year. They're not going to be intimidated by any of the bright lights, by any of the matchups, and they're going to be ready to go. As far as making it out of the NL, I think that's going to be exceedingly difficult for some of the reasons you mentioned, and also just the Dodgers, the Phillies, and a very talented Milwaukee team that people seem to be overlooking, maybe because they don't have a lot of those big stars, marquee guys, but they're just solid top to bottom. And of course, a very talented Padres team as well, and whoever else makes it in there out of the Mets and Braves. So it's going to be a very interesting NL, but I don't think we can count Arizona out for sure. And it does look like they're going to get there now.
Yeah, and yesterday we found out the regular season could extend into Monday. I mean, it's not a guarantee, but it does seem likely, Matt, that they're going to have to play probably at least one of those two games. I don't know about both, but with the way that this thing is headed, as long as these two teams just keep winning, they're going to face each other on Monday. Now, the Braves are up 6-5 in the season series, so basically if Atlanta can hang on and get within a game, then they're going to have to play two of those games for sure because a tie is not going to break it. Braves play against Kansas City. They're going to need all the games. So we know the Royals are going to have to win too. And the Brewers are basically playing for nothing. So I'm not really sure how that's going to set up. But if history tells us anything, Matt, the Brewers didn't really need much last year either. And they were playing really hard down the stretch and playing all their guys.
Yeah, which I would assume the same is going to happen. And I think you look at that situation that it almost feels like we're inevitably headed toward with the games on Monday, and you just wish that there could have been a little more foresight into that, because now you're going to have a lot of rotations out of whack and some real obstacles facing whatever team makes it out of that as they go into the playoffs. It's I think unfortunate for them. Obviously, if they make the playoffs though, then they made the playoffs and they'll adjust. But yeah, it's going to be a wild weekend going down the stretch, to say the least. Like you mentioned, these teams they're not playing teams that have nothing to play for, that are just going through the motions and already looking ahead to their winter vacations. So I think we're going to see some real good baseball. I don't foresee any teams just laying down for anyone else at this point.
All right, over in the American League, the Tigers are on the doorstep of the postseason because they played so well in September, and they play the White Sox this weekend. So I feel like there's a really good shot, Matt, that barring a catastrophe, we're going to see Detroit back in the postseason for the first time in a really long time, and this is what baseball postseason is about. It's now a tournament, Matt, and whoever gets hot can go far. Look, far be it from me to predict the Tigers to win the World Series, but I would not rule out anything at this point with the way that they've played.
No, you can't, and there's a lot of talent there for sure. They're having fun, playing as a team, coming together. We know that ballpark will be electric too when they get in there. You just got to hope the White Sox can't keep staving off history here the way they've done the past couple nights. But they're obviously in the driver's seat, and I would expect them to be there. And the Twins sort of let this happen. Didn't play well down the stretch while other teams passed them, and now they're in this position. So, yeah, it certainly looks like the Tigers are going to be one of those teams.
Yeah, Twins still not out of it, just 2 games out, by the way. So if they can get hot here before the weekend, they're still in. Also Seattle, 2.5 back, less likely, but have played good baseball here down the stretch too. All right, Matt, great to catch up with you. We'll see how it shakes out in baseball. We'll talk again next week.
All right, appreciate it.
All right, coming up next, the Green Bay Packers could turn back to Jordan Love this weekend. But how has it worked for Malik Willis? Matt LaFleur, we'll hear from him next.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Time to get a little preview of the upcoming game between the Vikings and the Packers. Also, Baltimore Ravens quarterback sounding off about an Instagram post, and also a big matchup tonight in the NFL. It's time now for the SportsGrid sound off. Can't make stories up in the NFL. They keep you guessing. How about this one? Green Bay Packers are not going to have Jordan Love, and they're going to win both games without him. And they're going to do it with a quarterback that was let go by the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans are not going to win a game. Can't make this stuff up. It's the way it works. Malik Willis has done a really good job for the Green Bay Packers, not just running and handing the ball off, but throwing as well. Now, Jordan Love is going to take his spot back. You don't pay somebody $50 or $60 million to sit, regardless of how much winning you are doing. There's a divisional matchup coming up this week against the Minnesota Vikings. But for now, Matt LaFleur is reflecting back on how the Packers got Willis ready to play so quickly and how much success he has had since then.
Yeah, you start thinking about what you have to do. And, we had an extra practice on that Monday. I think that initially we weren't going to practice on that Monday. We were going to do more, just condition them. But I thought it was important, given the circumstances, to go out there and practice our team. Why wouldn't you take advantage of that? I mean, I don't even know if he had taken a 2-minute drive up until that point. So, just to try to get him as many reps as possible. You're talking about the most critical position on the football field, the guy that touches the ball on every play. So it was kind of a crash course into trying some things out and just see how comfortable he was with them. I mean, it's the timing of all those motions, and we got different snap points, and I mean it's a lot to digest. But he showed that he was capable of handling it throughout the course of the week, and so and sometimes you got to be a little bit more aggressive in that regard in order to try to create some misdirection and keep the defense a little bit more off balance, knowing that we were probably going to try to run the ball a bunch.
Well done by Matt LaFleur. Fair to say there as the Packers take on the Vikings. Meanwhile, the Baltimore Ravens hasn't been easy for them. They've been playing close at every game they have played, far from dominant, I would say, through the first 3 weeks. So much so that Instagram was dominant with Marlon Humphrey and Lamar Jackson on a plane. Anybody catch this on social media last week? Lamar Jackson didn't seem too happy to be live on Instagram talking about them beating the Dallas Cowboys, and he talked about that in a media session yesterday.
When Marlo did his Instagram story, you told him, obviously, look, we got to get right, and you seem to want to shut that conversation down pretty quickly. Why did you react that way?
Marlo gonna be Marlo. I just didn't want the camera on me at the time, because he know this. I'm all about winning, and I like to. I don't want to say winning style, but I just want to. When we're up, I just want to punish people. I just want to get out of there with a dub. Clear-minded. Just we got things to work on. There's always gonna be things to work on, no matter if you beat a team 40-0, 22-26. Or 28-26. But it's like I ain't want the camera on me. Like that's my brother. I know he gonna do what he do, but it's like, man, not right now. I'm a little ticked off like how the game went. That's all.
So when you say you guys got to get right, what does that look like to you?
Just playing Raven football, putting points on the board. Those guys on the other side of our defense, just stopping people. And it's like, man, the Ravens didn't take their foot off their necks. That's pretty much how I look at games with us.
Ravens right now with a very tough schedule, still moving forward. Tough game tonight to call between the Giants and Cowboys. Here's Kevin Walsh with a preview of Thursday Night Football.
Thursday Night Football, we have an NFC East battle. The Giants hosting the Dallas Cowboys. Dallas laying about 5.5 points on the road. And the Cowboys do need this. If they lose this game, they will lock in the worst record through 4 weeks in that division. They enter the week with the second best odds. But with the way Washington has looked and the fact that a loss here would mean the Giants grab a head-to-head victory over them, we could see those Cowboys odds plummet. Would they be worse in the division? I'm not sure about that. Could they be 7-8-1? It's on the board. Dallas needs to put up a win here, and in doing so, they need to get the ball to CeeDee Lamb more. Lamb was someone who people thought might be able to lead the NFL in targets coming into this season, currently just tied for the 15th most in football. You know who leads the league in targets? Rookie Malik Neighbors for the New York Giants. Interesting markets to lead this game in receiving. CeeDee Lamb still the favorite at plus 120. Not a bad look. Craig, back to you.
Thanks, Kevin. We'll be right back.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to game time decision that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Let's bring in Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. We're less than 2 months away from trying to close out this year with some state in the U.S. legalizing sports betting. Will it be Missouri? Let's ask Pat. He has the latest on that. But first, had a little bit of breaking news here on the show today. ESPN Bet, Pat, looks like it's up and running in New York. How did it happen?
Yeah, there's a nice little soft launch for those in New York to have ESPN Bet. On Monday, they were approved by New York regulators to launch whenever they were ready. And so sure enough, they're rolling it out today just for users to kind of explore it and find it, however a soft launch works. And from what a spokesperson told us, there's going to be an official rollout, a big to-do tomorrow in New York. Just, they're rolling out the soft launch just in time for Week 4's Thursday night football game. They were supposed to launch a month ago, according to a CEO, Jay Snowden, earnings call in early August. But of course, the regulatory holdup happened to take about an extra month. So here we are now with a launch in just in time for Week 4 for ESPN Bet in New York.
Yeah, and funny, just a couple days ago, we were talking about them not being up. Now here they are. So at least they got something going there. Okay, so now let's get over to Missouri. The big vote coming up. Votes on everything across the country, of course, coming up in November. But as far as our universe is concerned, sports betting is our primary topic. It looks like one of the governors is also backing the idea to get sports betting going in Missouri. I mean, there does, Pat, seem to be quite a bit of momentum here. We don't know if it's going to cross the finish line because it's a vote, like nobody really can tell. I mean, it's completely unpredictable. It's like picking the outcome of a sporting event, but definitely a good amount of backing here.
Yeah, I mean, it just keeps rolling in, and it seems every time I come on here, whether it's a week or every other day, which it seems like I've been on this week a couple times, Missouri is in the news, and that is simply because it's the one state right now that the industry's looking at, because as you said, there's no states really else on the potential chopping, or I don't know, not chopping block, but on the up and up. So here we are coming less than 2 months, almost a month away from the election where Missouri sports betting is on the ballot. We've had a lot of things happen in the last couple of months. First, it was certified for the ballot. Then there was a lawsuit to challenge it, which they sided with the Secretary of State in his certification process. And then, of course, there's been an opposition PAC started that's funded by Caesars because they're unhappy with the ballot question. And then on the other side, FanDuel and DraftKings are funding more than $20 million worth of, contributions to a PAC started by the professional sports teams in the state. So, there's your basic sides. This week, we've seen both gubernatorial candidates come out and support the amendment, which is kind of a big deal because, if you're going out and you're voting for your person to be governor, you're very likely thinking about what they want to do on the amendments that are up, which include sports betting. And so that's kind of a big deal. And so we'll see what happens. Again, to your point, it's a vote. Anything could happen. Polls are whatever, which the latest polls, of course, show 52% are in favor of this amendment. Another 23% are undecided. Again, polls and margins of errors, who knows? But here we are sitting pretty nice and for the people who want this amendment. And then that includes the two gubernatorial candidates. And then just yesterday, the St. Louis Post-Dispatch came out and endorsed the amendment as well. So if readers are reading the newspaper and taking their word for it, there you go. There's another endorsement. So it is a lot of people lining up behind the legalization of sports betting in Missouri. They both gubernatorial candidates also endorsed the use of the money for an education, which Missouri is 47th in average teacher pay. And so they both say, want to raise teacher wages. And that would be huge from sports betting because the latest economic study, again released this week, there's so much coming out of Missouri recently, is $38.7 million roughly annually at the peak in the next 5 years goes to the state for education. So a lot of news coming out of Missouri, a lot of positive movement for those who want sports betting to be legalized. But again, to your point, polls can be polls and say whatever. What it comes down to is election day. And, again, we're just about a month out and we're going to be sitting on our hands watching this and seeing what happens in Missouri.
Yeah, could be a big month for people in Missouri betting on sports. All right. Also a big month, as always, for FanDuel. I saw yesterday that they are dominating the market share in a lot of the different places across the country. And with that comes responsibility and putting out an interesting statement or basically like a PowerPoint, it looked like, about them. I mean, honestly, about them focusing on all of the right things, meaning, figuring out how much people are wagering on, maybe potentially max bets, responsible gaming. So certainly for people who are out there, they could read more about this over at Legal Sports Report, but tell us more about their goals.
Yeah, so I'm going to leave most of this recap of the Flutter Investment Day, which was yesterday, to Sam McQuillan, who will be on with you again early next week. He was there. He was covering it. I heard he got a cool backpack out of it, so good for Sam. But yeah, they, of course, are pretty much the undisputed market leader at this point. I mean, a lot of people are saying and it is really 1-2 with them and DraftKings, but FanDuel has the leg up in most states, most markets. And so they're here setting the precedent, setting the goals and everything, and they really want to be a leader in every category they can be. And of note, which, really falls into my area of the legislative regulatory area, is they really signified that Texas, Florida, and California are going to be huge, points of interest in the coming years, and they need to figure out how to readjust their approach to legalize those states for themselves and the other sports books in the state. I mean, Florida, you have Hard Rock, but they'd like to be there as well, as you can imagine. I mean, those three states make up a huge portion of the U.S. population, and if they can get in there, they're saying the U.S. market could be a $63 million market by 2027, and that's counting 2 of 3 of those states, and then I think 20% or 80% of the population having sports betting, and then another 20 or 25% having iGaming. So they're setting pretty ambitious goals, but those are the projections they're putting out there, and we'll see kind of where it goes from here. Those 3 states have been trouble so far. Texas, we've got people in Nebraska saying, or Oklahoma saying it could be this next year. But again, who knows? There's lots of issues in California to overcome. And then, of course, lots of issues in Florida to overcome to have an open market there. So, a lot of interesting things out of there. And again, I'll let Sam McQuillan kind of fill in those holes next week. He was there listening intently and talking to people and seeing what everybody's thinking about Flutter and FanDuel. And it should be an interesting conversation you get to have with Sam next week.
Yeah, hopefully he shows us that backpack too. I'll wait for that.
I'll tell him to bring it.
Yeah, show it to me on the air. All right, so North Carolina, they got their stuff going here for sports betting. South Carolina has not. Just one of those, South states. Georgia, Alabama still don't have legalized sports betting. But with their neighbors getting sports betting, Pat, does South Carolina have a shot to join?
Yeah, I mean, talking about the states that we have left, Missouri, of course, is the one that we're all watching right now that could really easily get it done this fall. Minnesota's up there. Georgia's more likely than South Carolina, but we have a representative in South Carolina saying he's going to bring a sports betting bill for the third straight year. He says it needs to get done. North Carolina has it. Tennessee has it. They want to get it done, get the tax money to get it out in the line, the light and have it well regulated. But, sources have told me, and I need to go back and check with them now that I see this bill's coming, that South Carolina is unlikely to legalize it until Georgia does, so they're fully surrounded. But, hey, another bill is another bill, and we'll be tracking it closely at Legal Sports Report.
All right, Pat. Have a great rest of your week. Appreciate you coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Craig.
All right, coming up next, time to make your selections for the NFL this week. The Super Contest and Circa Millions contest is out there and ready to go. Brady Cannon's got his podcast and video show here on SportsGrid ready to tell you who their group likes. Give us a little bit of a hint coming up soon. Don't go away.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. One of my appointment shows on my podcast library each week is listening to Brady Kannon, James Salinas, and Mike Pritchard do their Super Contest show and Circa Survivor show, Circa Millions show. You can catch it here on SportsGrid and also wherever you listen to your podcasts. And Brady's back with us here this week. We'll recap what happened last week, take a quick preview of this week, and also talk about Thursday night's game. Brady, great to be back with you here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Craig. And you talk about it being on SportsGrid, wherever you find your podcast. You can also just go online to footballcontestshow.com and everything will be up there, the YouTube version, the audio version, what have you. But yeah, we're off to a good start with it. It's been very well received. And, the way it's going, I see this probably happening for years to come. I mean, there's such an appetite. I mean, the Circa Survivor story is viral, right? I mean, to have a show about it, I think just makes sense. I mean, if you look at Circa Survivor, they started with 14,266 entries. Through 3 weeks, 95% of the pool is gone. There are 642 entries remaining, one of which is owned by our own Joe Ranieri. So rooting hard for him.
Really? Oh, cool.
Yeah, Joe is still alive. But nobody is a Bengals fan anymore. 40%, 41% of Circa Survivor has lost with the Bengals. They have been responsible for almost 6,000 entries going by the wayside in week 1 and then most recently in week 3.
Yeah, I mean, look, Washington. I think Washington's really good moving forward, and so that didn't surprise me. But yes, losing to the Patriots, obviously, that one I could not have seen coming. And maybe at the end, I mean, is it possible, Brady, we could have like one winner of this contest and like no ties?
It's
like,
possible. There's never been a sole Circa Survivor before.
Wow.
You just wonder when this contest is going to end. I mean, are we going to have another week of absolute carnage? Are they going to take out 50% of the pool again? You kind of hope not. We've talked about this. You feel a little bit bad for Derek Stevens and this contest that, you don't want it to end in week 8. It'd be nice if it went through the holidays and that type of thing. He's already put the empathy package out there for people that have been eliminated. They can come stay at Circa for a couple nights for free. What do you do now to follow that up? But at the same time, like we talked about, the story is probably reaching global proportion. So I think the more people that hear about this, the more people that are alerted to this topic, whether it be positive or negative, you're probably going to have an even bigger pool next year. Who knows? Maybe it's a $20 million contest in 2025.
Yeah, no, it's crazy to see what has happened this season. Brady and his team, by the way, they went 3-2 in both contests last week. And for those of you who say, that's nothing, try doing it on your own. Try picking 5 games a week on your own to see if you can go 3-2 every week. I have news for you. If you do, you're going to make a lot of money over the course of the season.
It's 60%,
Yeah.
So
no,
you maintain a 60% clip. It's not too bad.
You make money. No, you make money at the end of the year in betting and in these contests. So as we look ahead to week 4, this week in particular, I have not seen a ton of major shifting from when the lines came out Wednesday to today. So, I mean, I'm guessing that there's a couple of things you probably can lock in. I guess we're going to wait on the Chargers to see if Herbert plays. I mean, that's still out there yet again this week. I know you guys talked about that last week. It really, I know he didn't play in the end. Maybe that was really the difference in the fourth quarter, how you guys picked up that Pittsburgh win and cover, because they were not winning that game handily until he went out. Any early movement here or anything that you're looking at as the week comes to a close here tomorrow?
Yeah, I've got a couple that I have my eye on, Craig. And first of all, that is the New York Jets. I think the Jets, and I've thought this from day one, even preseason, that they're a pretty decent team, even though they got steamrolled by San Francisco in week 1. I think that was more of San Francisco being absolutely perfect in that game. The Jets were not that bad. They never had the ball. And they've shown since then that they're pretty good. They're allowing on average less than 17 points per game, and they're taking on a Denver Broncos offense that is one of the bottom 10 in the league in yards per play. So I think they can suffocate that Bronco offense off of a big win, an upset win as a big underdog, the Denver Broncos. I think the Jets will be able to handle Denver. There's also a little bit of a storyline here with Aaron Rodgers, maybe wanting to extract some revenge a little bit on Sean Payton for his comments and the firing of Nathaniel Hackett, so we'll see how that goes. Another one, not such a narrative street angle like that, but I think the Seattle Seahawks are the most fraudulent 3-0 team in the league. And not that they're bad, but look who they've beaten. They've beaten maybe the three of the worst teams in football in the Denver Broncos, the Miami Dolphins, and the New England Patriots. Now they're going to face a completely different animal, no pun intended, the Detroit Lions, who are a very good team. I think Detroit, we were on the Cardinals in the contest last week and probably should have won that game, if not covered at least. They were jobbed a couple different times, a few different ways towards the end of that game. But good for the Lions for hanging on the road, getting the win, and surviving that, what is a pretty darn good Arizona team, I believe. Well, now Seattle's in for a real treat. This is a different, they're going up in class, if you will, versus what they've faced so far this season. So I think Detroit, you never like to lay 3.5, just like you never like to lay or take 2.5. But I think it tells you something when the 3.5 has not moved down. I think this line's probably going to go up. So I would grab the 3.5 before it hits 4 or 4.5 on Detroit.
Yeah, I mean, Seattle couldn't put Miami away, and Miami was going backwards the entire game last week. By the way, that Jets line in the contest, is it 7 or 7.5 in those contests?
I believe it's 7.5, and Circa is going to come out here probably in the next couple of hours. The Westgate went up last night, and I haven't even taken a look. I apologize. There you have it on your graphic there, but I have not seen 7.5 is what the super contest. I imagine it'll probably be the same for Circa.
Yeah. Any lean tonight, Cowboys, Giants?
Gosh. Ugly game. The Giants have been so awful against the Cowboys. 1-13 straight up their last 14 meetings. 0-5 against the spread at home. They say the Cowboys are desperate for a win. Aren't the Giants too? I think I'm going to stay away. I made the number 4.5. It's probably going to go to 6. Maybe wait and take the dog late.
All right, we'll be right back.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on SportsGrid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid as we get ready to wrap things up. We've got a couple of baseball stories to hit on, and of course, we are approaching history in the NBA. It's a story that kind of gone away for a little while here, but with training camp getting started, it's time to get back to it with LeBron James and Bronny James being on the court at the same time. Time now for some last licks. Well, Red October is upon us again, wouldn't you know? The Philadelphia Phillies have not just clinched the postseason, they've clinched the division, they've also clinched a bye in the playoffs. So they're going to get that thing, they're going to get some days off. Maybe it's all thanks to this one fan in Philadelphia. You may remember that Trey Turner, who, by the way, played for the Dodgers, played for the Nationals, ended up signing a mega contract with the Philadelphia Phillies. And things just were not going particularly well. Turner wasn't hitting. He was making all kinds of errors on the field. And Phillies fans were, not really having it, sort of booing a little bit. But all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Phillies fans gave him a standing ovation at a time where he was undergoing the worst slump of his career, which is super rare for what's going on in Philadelphia. And one particular fan apparently is responsible for getting this wave started. And he's getting his own Netflix show. Yeah, Netflix is actually going to do a full hour documentary on the turnaround of Trey Turner and how it happened and how that standing ovation even happened. And the reason, maybe some of you are cynical out there saying, does this really deserve a Netflix program? Well, truth be told, Philly fans are probably the most relentless on their players than any other in all of sports. And for them to do the opposite for Turner clearly turned it around. In fact, Turner, if you may remember, took out a full-page ad in one of the newspapers thanking the fans, also a billboard thanking the fans for supporting him. And Turner, of course, one of the great players in the game right now. Really cool story as that turned around. Well, a really bad story is the Oakland A's leaving Oakland. We've known that's been going on. And last night, I don't know if you saw this, but the groundskeepers were giving away dirt on the field. People were asking for it. They were, basically picking it up, putting in water bottles. And look, A's fans have sort of been relentless in this idea that this is the last game played in the Oakland Coliseum. So they've just decided to take stuff. Yeah, I mean, they're just taking stuff from the place. Now, they try to stop this. I know security at the last game of different places will say you can't bring in screwdrivers or any things, but that's not stopping the fans there. They were taking seats home. Yeah, look at that. Those green seats home from the Oakland Coliseum last night. As they close out history in Oakland, people want mementos of things. And the dirt, I think, is fair. But, yeah, you got to really have some, stones to bring in equipment to remove chairs and things like that. I don't think anyone's going to stop them, though, at this point. Final game in the Oakland Coliseum. Kind of sad to see. But headed to Sacramento, I guess. Is that the deal? It's headed to Sacramento with the Oakland A's. And then eventually to Las Vegas. When that happens is your guess, my guess, and everybody else's guess as well. All right, history going to be made coming up with LeBron James playing on the same court as his son. I'm guessing this will happen in the preseason and then the regular season. What happens for real, NBA preseason is next month. And LeBron James apparently already getting started. In fact, LeBron James, on the same court, apparently in a practice. We do not have video of this, but Rob Pelinka, the GM, said that LeBron took Bronny to school, went on the court, went right by him, threw in the bucket and said, come on, man, that's too easy. Not the first time LeBron has said this, by the way. Our producer Frank sent me some video of him saying this in Cleveland also when this has happened previously. But needless to say, these two, they're going to be on the same team. We've heard about, is Bronny going to call him dad? Is he going to call him LeBron? How this is all going to work? I still maintain when this actually happens, when the two are on the court at the same time, in a real NBA game, it's one of the biggest moments in sports history. Father and son playing together in the NBA. After that, I don't think anybody's going to care anymore. But in that moment, it's going to be huge. And I suppose it will happen in the next 2 months. That'll do it for our show today. I want to thank Matt Lutovsky from Sporting News for coming on the show. Also want to thank Brady Kannon, and you can catch his podcast and video show here on SportsGrid Saturday night. And also Pat Evans from Legal Sports Report. I'll give you the rundown for the rest of the day here on SportsGrid. Of course, we've got some great programming leading you up to tonight's Thursday night football game, so make sure you catch Pro Football Today as well as Game Time Decisions. But Pharrell is on at 3 o'clock Eastern as always. We'll recap the game tonight, and then, of course, we'll have a post-game show as always as well. Thanks to our producer, Frank, our director, Luke. I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy Thursday and Thursday night football, baseball, and, of course, the fun game tonight, hopefully, between the Giants and Cowboys. Luke, have fun at the game. See you tomorrow.